Welcome to Everyone Has a Story. I'm your host, Marcus Jones. This is my 9th season of producing and hosting Everyone Has a Story at Can TV, located at 1309 South Wood Street. I tell you, this season is going to be absolutely one of my best. I absolutely love meeting and interviewing people and sharing their stories to educate you, my viewers, on such a great platform. Also this season, number 9, not only will I be streaming live the day of the taping where we'll be see behind the scenes control room guests, cameramen, and etc. I will be posting the whole interview on my YouTube channel. So I would love for you to go to my YouTube channel and click the subscribe button so you can enjoy my interviews from season 3 to 9 and 3 to 8, and 9 is coming soon. So tell a family member, friend, associate, or organization to tune in to watch the edited version. Go to your computer web browser, type in Can TV, then click on schedule, and then channel 21 to see the date and time it comes on Can TV. I would also like you to visit my website, www.marcusjonesstory.com, my Twitter, at I Have a Story 2Tell, that's I Have a Story, the number 2, Tell, T-E-L, and of course my Facebook and IG, which is just Marcus Jones. Today, my guest has been doing exceptional in the music business. Named one of the top 100 artists on The Verge by NMS and one of Chicago's 10 hottest rising stars by the Chicago Tribune, Sean Eric Baraka Butler, better known as Sean S.B. Butler, is at the forefront of hip-hop revolution. His motivational lyrics and passionate stage show have earned him international recognition from devoted fans and industry insiders alike. Such receptions has enabled him to share billings with the host of celebrated acts including Erykah Badu, Common, Kanye West, Talib Kweli, The Last Poets, Jessica Care Moore, and just so many others. So let me show you a tad bit of that. Run the clip.
It's a band Chicago Tribune is calling one of the hottest rising talents in the music scene, SB.
Lincoln's gonna love these guys.
Shot-town, stand up, let's go. Now when I look into the eyes of my little niece, I want to find a way to bring the whole world peace. While my country dropping bombs in the Middle East, I'm contemplating the war with how to make it cease. Cause we can all feast without having to steal for one another. We can heal one another, you can feel for a brother. It ain't about black and white, spell wrong and right. Raising our seeds to walk in the light. No, and that be a wonderful sight. I hope my words make us spark like I'm being with the...
My viewers, please help me welcome Sean S.B. Butler. I'm happy to have you on my show. Thank you for allowing me to interview. Great. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Obviously, it's an honor and a privilege to be able to be here on your show, and just got a lot of beautiful things, man, in store for 2017 and 2018 beyond.
Great, brother. Happy to hear that. Originally from Chicago?
Born and raised. I was born on the north side and raised on the south side.
How did growing up in Chicago mold you as a person and as an artist?
I think first and foremost, as a person, Chicago, one, it's a world-class city with a lot of diversity in terms of, just the different walks of life. So I was born on the north side. I spent my early childhood, my first 2 years of my life on the north side, and then we moved to the south side, right around like 76th and South Shore, and then spent a good deal of time on 86 and Drexel, right off of like 87th and Cottage. So, Chicago is one of those cities. When I've traveled, it gets a lot of respect for the fact that it's a true city. It's gritty. New York and Chicago are probably the grittiest cities of the bigger ones that you'll find probably anywhere in the entire world. And so it definitely gave me, I think it centered me, because it made sure that I had a certain level of you had to have a certain level of street sense growing up where I grew up. You put on a certain type of persona just to walk down the street, just to make sure nobody bothered you. I experienced firsthand the disparity that you see in Chicago. So for all the diversity that you might have in Chicago, you got people from all over the world that live here. the history of Chicago is steeped very much in segregation. And there are a lot of people to this day that'll say that Chicago is the most segregated city in the world. So I got a chance to see that as a person who got bused, like I said, to classical schools on the north side. And I got a chance to see the type of resources that I got at that school, you know, and that people, you know, of other races had access to. I got a chance to see the opposite of it. You know, when I go to my father's school or some of the schools that I attended on the south side before I started getting bused out to the north side.
And that's pretty much like how it is for me, because I grew up on the south side for over 30 years and now I reside on the north side. You know, was it in school where you learned, you know, being a hip hop artist?
There's combination of things. So yes, in school. So I was, I think like most people, hopefully you had that one teacher, you know, who really made a life-changing difference for you. And for me, that teacher, you know, hopefully she's still around. I haven't been able to track her down, but her name was Miss Wall. She was a person who first helped me to understand that I actually had a talent and an affinity for writing. I didn't know. I was in about, I want to say maybe 5th grade. She gave us a writing assignment. And unfortunately, I got so much into the assignment that I didn't finish it. You know what I mean? Like, in your first time writing anything, you don't understand probably that much like running, you got to pace yourself.
Right.
And you got to move in accordance with a deadline. And so when I turned it in, you know, I let her know like, hey, I hadn't finished it and everything. And she could have very well given me like an F, but she chose not to. She gave me an extension. She allowed me to finish it because I honestly believed in my talent as a writer. And she even entered me in this contest called the Young Authors Contest.
Okay.
So that's where I really discovered that I actually had a talent for writing. And then over time, you know, as hip hop was starting to evolve or whatever, you know, we used to like, cats would like beat on the table in the lunchroom, you know what I mean? We freestyle outside. And I think when I really started to understand that I could do this for real was when I had a chance to meet with Bushwick Bill of the Ghetto Boys. So he saw me performing with my cousins and he was like, yo, like, who is that? And my Uncle Gil was right next to him and he was like, you know, oh, that's my nephew, Sean. He's always rapping or whatever. He was like, yo, kid has the skills to make meals. Does he have a demo? And my uncle was like, I don't know. I just know that he's always rapping. And so my uncle, being the businessman that he is, he was one of the founders of the Midnight Basketball League, and he spent a lot of time in leadership with CHA. Him and my aunt actually gave me, you know, my first investment to get in the studio and create a demo, and from there it was on. I linked up with a guy by the name of DJ Icy Dre, who used to be the DJ and produce for another Chicago great by the name of Twister, and that started my whole path to, you know, doing music professionally.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. I see you have a strong relationship with your family.
Absolutely.
You know, and your father. You mentioned him several times.
Absolutely.
You know, so my question I wanted to ask you was, what do you think the difference is that young people who don't have relationships with their father, you know, growing up in the same household?
I think it's tough. I mean, you start out with a huge disadvantage. I was fortunate in the fact that I had both my parents in the household, and I think we're very much, as human beings, we're very much the product of nurture as much as we are the product of nature, right? And maybe even more so. I think for a young man or just for a child, any child, it's critical to have those role models. It's critical to have a man showing you what it looks like to be a man. In the same way that it's critical for you to have a mother, you know, to show you what it means to be a mother and the nurturing that goes along with that. So, you know, my father gave me a certain level of discipline growing up that I can honestly say it would have been difficult for me to have otherwise. You know, if my mother was raising me by herself, I'm sure she would have tried, you know, to kind of show me what a man is supposed to be like and how men should treat women, and how men should just move in the world at large. But that's a difficult job. I think that, you know, I'm a believer, you know what I'm saying? So I know that, you know, God is in control And I believe that God created the family unit the way that it was designed to be, with people having both parents in the household. So I think it makes it very difficult for people when they don't have two parents in the household, because you don't necessarily have that modeling. You know, I know you have a lot. Lately, we've been hearing a lot about accusations of public figures. You know, I know Bill Cosby went through a time where, it seemed like people were coming out of the woodwork. But what I can tell you about the show that he created and the legacy that he created through the Cosby Show, it really modeled what, a good black family looks like, what a good black family can be, what black love and what black excellence represents. And I can just say that I was fortunate enough to grow up in that type of household. We didn't have Cosby money, but we had Cosby character. You know what I mean? We had Cosby class.
And on that note, we're going to take a short break. But when we come back, we're going to find out more about SB Sean Butler, on how he thinks his music will change people. We'll be back in 2 minutes with Everyone Has a Story.
So intelligent and lovable, so compatible and beautiful. Never pull silly things they pull. I'm looking.
We're back here on Everyone Has a Story. I'm your host, Marcus Jones, and I'm here with Sean SB Butler. When did you start writing and actually recording music?
I started recording when I was back in college. So right around the time, as I mentioned, when I met Bushwick Bill, God has a funny way of working. So I happened to meet DJ Icy Dre around the same amount of time, and we went right into the studio then. So
wow, that's because sometimes you had to go through a certain process, and it's so long, you know, and you have to build your brand and do all these other things. But you, right off top, you went into the studio with somebody that was huge already.
I was blessed, like I mentioned, I think God, God is always in control. And like you say, sometimes it can take a long time to get those type of situations. And I think, he was definitely shining on me to give me that opportunity so early,
For sure. So let me ask you, how did you develop your style of rap? And what would you call it? Because you got the hip hop, you got the conscious, then you got rap, then you got dirty south. So many styles out there.
Well, I would say I call it true school. Some people would say old school, some people say new school. I say true school, and what I mean by that is I think that hip hop is very much, as a genre, it's very much a derivative, like most things, of Africa. If you follow it all the way back to the beginnings, in West Africa, they have what is known as griots. And the griots were basically storytellers and rappers in a sense, But what they did with their stories is they passed on morals, they passed on traditions, they passed on values. And I think if you look at hip hop in its inception, when you look at songs like The Message, you look at MCs like KRS-One or Public Enemy, those brothers always had a strong message in the music that I think was meant to not only motivate and inspire, but to educate. I think KRS-One he even called it edutainment, which is something that I borrowed from him. So I believe that I edutain, people through the music, and it's about motivating and inspire people to live better lives, and I think, align more with God. When I was coming up, I used to hear all these different MCs, and you have the conscious MCs, you have the Lukes, the NWAs, Tribe Called Quest, and all of that. And I think there was a much broader spectrum, but even in that spectrum, I always found myself kind of searching for, like, I felt like the perfect hip hop superhero, so to speak. And I never really found what I wanted, because, even with the conscious MCs, I felt like, in many cases they might use a lot of profanity, or, there might be some vulgarity or misogyny that's mixed in what they were doing. And so it dawned on me, a big quote from Mahatma Gandhi, that I really, really believe in as a mantra, even as a kid, and certainly now today, is be the change you want to see in the world.
For sure.
So rather than just continue to try to search for what I felt was the ultimate MC, I was like, I might as well be it. And, here I am today.
For sure, man. Hey, and I'm glad you showed up, man.
Thank
and
you.
I tell all my guests that, I'm just glad you showed up.
Thank you,
know
brother.
What I mean? So, how do you think your music will change people?
I think it'll change the world in terms of, like, first and foremost, bringing people more into alignment with God. I think the way that I deliver my messaging, it's not beating you over the head with the messaging, but the messaging is there. I don't brand what I do as gospel music, but the gospel is definitely there in the music. And I think if I branded it gospel, the reality of it is that most of the people who needed it the most wouldn't go out and consume it. But because I just give it to them, I give them the music without necessarily putting a particular label on it, I think people receive it better that way. So the goal is always just to elevate. I was raised, by a strong family,
For sure.
Positive values, positive morals, and I was always taught, don't say anything unless you have something important to say. So that's what my music is about, is hopefully sharing information from my personal experience, learn from my successes, learn from my failures, but then also learn from some things that I've experienced indirectly, through some of my friends who are no longer here, and just life in general.
Right. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll get to find out just a little bit more about Sean Butler, where he think is hip hop today. What do you think hip hop today is to you? And also, we're going to talk about his program, Reach. We'll be back in 2 minutes. We're back with Everyone Has a Story. I'm your host, Marcus Jones, and I'm here with Sean Butler, AKA or BKA SB. What do you think hip hop today is to you? Is it taking a step back or forward, or like, where do you see it going?
I think it's a kind of a mixed bag. So on one end, I think if you look at the Kendrick Lamars of the world, you look at artists like J. Cole and Logic, they're definitely, I think, carrying on the tradition in terms of bringing a high standard of excellence from a lyricism standpoint. I have to throw Rhapsody into that as well too. High standards when it comes to lyricism, but then also the substance. And I think that the strongest MCs are those that are not only going to give you the skills, but they're also going to give you something of substance, as well as obviously having the strong production and all of that. I think on the antithesis of that is that you are seeing a lot of artists that no longer really hold a regard for lyricism whatsoever. Right. And their whole thing is like, hey man, as long as I'm riding the beat, and I have a certain type of swagger, the people are gonna enjoy it anyway. They're popping pills and all of that. They're not really focused on or really even gonna appreciate me necessarily trying to be the most lyrical guy out there, so I don't even try to do that. And so, I don't necessarily think that that's a good way to look at your art form. I think in life, whatever you do, you should try to be great. You should be striving to surpass, those that have come before you, and it's important to know the history of it and to show a certain level of respect for it. And so, that's a tradition that I'm looking to carry on. And I think that when it's all said and done, when people talk about whoever their top 5 MCs are, it's always going to be those people that are doing just that are going to bring you the lyricism from a skills perspective, but then also going to give you quality and substance.
Great. I know you just came out with your CD not too long ago. It's called Revolution.
Yes.
Right. How did that name come about? Or, what was that thought process like?
Well, because, I'm glad you asked that. I think it goes back to that mantra that I talked about, the Mahatma Gandhi quote, be the change that you want to see in the world. I'm very much a believer that if you want to change the world, you got to start with the man or the woman in the mirror that you look at every day. And I always wanted to make sure that anything that I was doing was going to be revolutionary. I grew up reading books about the Panthers, Fred Hampton, reading about Marcus Garvey, reading about Malcolm and Martin. That was my household, and so I saw these people that gave their lives quite literally to making the world a better place and making a difference, and it was about revolution.
Right.
So for me, I wanted the album to be right in alignment with that.
Great. So now tell us about the program Reach.
Reach. So Reach stands for Revitalizing Education, Art, and Culture through Hip Hop. And it goes back to something that we talked about a little bit earlier, the whole concept of edutainment. What I found is that, coming from a family of educators and just, being a product of different school systems, a lot of reasons I personally think that you see people not being as attentive in the educational system is because they don't relate and they don't feel like the curriculum is entertaining. Mm-hmm. The one thing that we know for a fact is that people are entertained and they've bought into hip hop. You'll find some students, they may not necessarily be able to remember certain things or spell certain things accurately, but when it comes to knowing the latest rhyme, they can recite that rhyme from beginning to finish. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to use the notoriety that I've been able to build as a public figure, particularly as a hip hop recording artist, to be able to command their attention. And so the Reach program is about teaching and enhancing critical thinking skills, but we use the form of hip hop. So we might talk about, for example, the African origins of hip hop. They might not know that, when it's all said and done, graffiti is a derivative of the Egyptian writings that they had on the walls. Mm-hmm. They might not know that, the DJ comes from, African word djembe, which stood for the drum. The drum was the life of the party, or set the pace for the party in the same way that the DJ sets the pace for the party. And so we've got a lot of different modules that we use that make education fun. One thing I want to talk about in particular is because you see a lot of these young people nowadays, they want to be rappers. They want to go into the world of entertainment, but they don't realize that these literary skills, like personification, metaphor, onomatopoeia, this is stuff that you should be paying attention to in school because it's going to make you better at your craft. It's going to enable you to be a better songwriter. And so, we even have portions of the workshop, modules within the workshop where we talk about that. And, we always get a lot of fanfare around it.
For sure, man. It sounds like an excellent program. And we definitely going to let people know in the credits, where they can be a part of that program and learn more about it. So we're going to take another quick short break, but when we come back, we're going to wrap things up. We'll be back with Everyone Has a Story in just a minute. We're back with Everyone Has a Story. My guest, SB. He's an outstanding brother who overcame some insurmountable obstacles. Do awards excite you, or do you want all the fame and the fortune?
I do. I want the recognition, I want the fame and the fortune, but I think I want it for different reasons. Obviously you want to be able to take care of your family, you want to be able to take care of your loved ones, you want to feel accepted. I think that's common to the human experience. But I mean, my main reason for wanting all of those attributes is, I came up seeing public figures like Muhammad Ali, Harry Belafonte, cats that, a good example, Bob Marley, Fela Kuti, cats that use, the fact that they're in the public eye to bring attention to causes and situations that needed attention. And so I think when you're a public figure, when you're a quote unquote celebrity, even if you don't put your own money behind something, you'll always be able to find those benefactors that'll help to put money towards any social ill that you want to address. And, there's so much right here in Chicago. We don't have to go all the way around the world to other places. We have a lot of situations that need to be corrected right here in our city of Chicago. And I want to be able to shine a light on that and be able to help.
For sure. Let everyone know what is your social media.
Okay, so social media, first and foremost, official website is www.sbhiphop.com. On Twitter @SBHipHop, Instagram @SBHipHop. On Facebook, it's just Sean Butler. Very easy to find me, and that probably wraps it up.
Do you have any upcoming projects coming out?
I do, so I'm glad you mentioned that. So first and foremost, I've got a project called Southside to South Africa. We're going to be filming a documentary, so we'll be traveling back. This will be my first trip, even though I've traveled internationally. This will be my first trip to the motherland. The closest I've ever been has been South France, you know, and that was an experience because you see the culture, you see our influence there greatly. But, you know, in this particular trip, I'm going out to South Africa, and we chose South Africa simply because we think that there are a lot of parallels to what the experience is here on the south side of Chicago, and has been for a while, you know, dealing with apartheid. You know, the parallel here is the fact that, again, Chicago to this day remains probably one of the most segregated cities in America. If you look at where blacks are concentrated, it's largely on the south side and the west side. And so, you know, my goal is to go there and give people a perspective of Africa outside of what we tend to be indoctrinated with. You know, as I was growing up, and I think still to this day, Africa still gets painted as the dark continent, and it's not represented as the beautiful mother of civilization that it is. They don't highlight all the incredible things that are going on over there. And I just want to be able to like be a window, so to speak, to the whole experience of what at least this one country within the greater continent of South Africa represents, as well as, you know, build a forum for South African artists to come here to the States, as well as artists from south side of Chicago to across America to make their way to South Africa. One of my musical heroes, Bob Marley, one of his biggest goals was just the unification of people of African descent across the diaspora, and I think that this could be a great bridge toward making that dream come true.
For sure, brother, for sure. I'm glad you came out, you know, shared your story, and I wish you the most success in endeavors in your future. So, well, it's that time of the show. We have come to the end, but I had a great time today. I want to thank my guest for all the work he is doing in helping people in communities all over Chicago and beyond. I hope he had a nice time on today's show.
I did.
Until next time on Everyone Has a Story, I'm your host, Marcus Jones. And don't forget to visit cantv.org.